stress is usually you have too many things going on and not enough resources to cover those things that's going on. And so what I teach people is to identify where is my stress threshold and what do I need to do to bring it down and get below that so that I can operate in a functional way rather than being taken out by stress.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm Larry Davis, and this is the Growth State of Mind. And today, I'm having a conversation with Tracy Taris, and we're going to talk about stress management, self-care, developing and implementing boundaries, and so much more. So I would like to introduce you to my guest, Tracy Taris. She's a marriage and family therapist and the owner of Healing Mind and Spirit Incorporated, and is the author of the book, Many Voices, One Truth. Hey, Tracy, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Larry. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, Tracy, you are the author of the book, Many Voices, One Truth. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and what led you to write the book?
Well, the book is about belief and what voices you believe. One of the reasons I wrote the book is because as a marriage and family therapist, I do a lot of what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive has to do with your cognitions and how you're thinking about things. And behaviors are the behaviors that you can implement to change how you're thinking about things. And so one of the things I noticed in working with clients over the last however many years, almost 18 years I've been doing, well, almost 20 years, I've been doing this 18 years, is that most of us at any time or another have a lot of incoming information in our head, a lot of voices that play out like thoughts. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is to help them to identify what those voices are and learn how to quiet those voices and how to tune in to the truth. Like, instead of believing the lies that we each can tell ourselves, what the reader would learn is how to tune out some of the voices that are not edifying and tune in to the voices that are building them up and that are connected with truth. It's a Christian self-help book, but it's for anyone who has troubles thinking through things and fighting dark thoughts or fighting negativity, fighting negative thoughts. Because in the book, I take a lot of the tools I use in my therapy practice from cognitive behavioral therapy, and I marry them with contemplative, meditative, and prayer practices that are designed to not only tune out voices that are causing you distress, but to tune into things that are edifying for your soul. And in this case, it's the word. But it's also for stress relief. Like when you actually practice these exercises, because they are meditative, because they are prayer based, because they are therapy based, you will tune down some of the stress and learn how to manage and eliminate stress in your life. But you learn how to do it mostly through your thought processes.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask. You answered my question. I was going to a follow-on question. I was going to ask you, when you say, I understand the many voices, but when you say the one voice, is it from is that voice God? Is it from
Yes.
a more of a Christian perspective, or,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
pretty much answered that question.
Well, when I grew up, we only had 4 broadcast networks. It was ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, the public. There was cable, but we didn't have cable. We only had those 4 networks to choose from. So when we were watching television, in whatever we were watching, it was probably on one of those networks. And so the voices inside our head act in the same manner. They come across as different broadcast networks competing for your attention. And so in the book, I name those broadcast networks as self, Satan, society, and savior. So savior is the one truth. And it's more like, who were you created to be? Who did God create you to be and make you to be? Rather than tuning into the voices, the other 3 voices that tear you down and that tell you lies about yourself and that prevent you from moving forward in the direction of your dreams and prevent you from operating from the person that you were made to be.
And we're going to get a little bit more into the book later on. And let me ask you this. Let's talk about stress. Why do you feel like, especially in today's day and age, and I don't know if it's, we probably can say, post COVID, definitely,
Yeah.
but even before COVID, I would say, but definitely much post COVID, the stress that people are facing. Why does stress management seem to be such a problem in our culture?
Well, stress management is a problem because we as people have a brain that likes what's usual. And so we as people have learned how to be habitually stressed. Like we have habitual ways of doing things. And you're right, it did happen before COVID. And it's, for many people who struggled with this, with stress before COVID, they're having an even harder time. And so, what stress is about is how you respond to what's going on around you. I created this assessment called the stress threshold assessment. And your stress threshold is the amount of things that you can have on your plate before you pop, basically. And popping might look different to different people. Like if you're overstressed, if you've crossed your stress threshold, for some people, that means eating and sleeping too much or not enough, drinking too much, changes in your ways of being, becoming easily irritated, withdrawing socially, calling into work sick, and just eliminating things that you need to be able to do every day. When you cross your stress threshold, you will see some of these different kinds of symptoms pop up. And so what I teach people about stress is to identify it. Like when they first come in for therapy, we'll identify what are the stressors that are going on, why are they there, and where did they come from, and then we'll engage in techniques to manage some of that stress. And some of that might be where they delegate certain things. It might be where they put certain things aside to address later on. And so it just depends on what's going on with the person. But it's stress is usually you have too many things going on and not enough resources to cover those things that's going on. And so what I teach people is to identify where is my stress threshold and what do I need to do to bring it down and get below that so that I can operate in a functional way rather than being taken out by stress.
So when you say stress threshold, that's hard to say. Stress
It is. I
threshold.
always mess it up.
um, that to me that insinuates that some people may have a higher threshold than others.
Yes.
And if that is the case, if that's what you're saying, then why is that different? Is it because of backgrounds, or is it because a person that's stronger mentally? Is it because like what are the things that like, and can I learn to have a higher stress threshold, or like go a
Yeah.
little bit deeper into that?
Well, your stress threshold is kind of like how you're made and what is your natural level of how many things that you're going to take care of. What is that naturally for you? And so a good analogy that I can think of right now is eating. We all have a different size stomach. We all have a different amount of food we can take in before we start feeling uncomfortable. So anyone who's managing weight, just like you want to manage your stress, anyone that's managing weight are managing food intake for health reasons, what they'll normally tell you is that you don't want to stop eating when you're full, because by the time you can feel that you're full, it's already too late. You've probably overeaten. You want to stop when you feel satiated, like when you feel satisfied. And because that's different for different people, it's the same way with stress. Your ability to handle number of items on your schedule or number of obligations in your life depends on you as a person. And so in my stress threshold, and I could send you the assessment and you can put it in a link form for your listeners if they want to click on it and test it. So it's an assessment that will ask you certain questions, like there's groups of questions, and you would circle either 0 to 3. based on how you've been now and over the last 2 weeks. And then you answer each of the questions. And then at the end of the question, you add the questions, you add them up. And at the end of the assessment, it gives you a key that tells you, oh, these are just normal everyday stressors that most people have. You're nowhere near your stress threshold. And then the next category is these things might be a little bit, there might be a little bit too much going on for you, or you're nearing your stress threshold, or you're at your stress threshold, or you've exceeded your stress threshold. And at each one of those things, with the exception of the first one, 0 to 10 or 0 to 9, something like that, says, oh, this is your normal. This is just normal every day. There's nothing you need to do about it. The next section is mind how you're thinking about things. You might want to change how you're thinking about things. And then after that, it's either delegate some things, put some things on the back shelf, or go and see a professional counselor, depending on where you fall on that assessment.
Okay, so if you take that test, you take that assessment, and once you give them the assessment, we'll definitely put that in the show description.
Yeah.
So are you saying that will give a person, let's just say a person who, if they take the assessment and some of the things that they put in there and it says, oh, this is just normal everyday stuff, that will call out the, I don't want to say drama queen in them. Will that is that something that'll call out the drama queen in them and let them know, hey, you're the one overreacting because this is normal stuff? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, no, not necessarily call out the drama queen. It might just be pointing that out, the tendency, if you have the tendency to make mountains out of a molehill, it could actually be a form of soothing for you to know that, okay, I'm not way over my stress threshold, or maybe things aren't as bad as it seems, because this is the normal level of stressors. I say that, but even if you come in at like 9 or 10, but you feel like, no, I feel a little bit more stressed than normal situations and circumstances, it could be either A, one of the questions you probably should have marked higher than you marked, or B, it's an assessment for the average person. I would say listen to yourself. Like, if you're feeling like this feels a little bit more intense to me, this level of stress feels a little bit more intense to me, I would say listen to that and get some help. And help may come in the form of looking for a therapist and going to talk to someone. You don't have to wait until your levels are high or that assessment registers at the high rate that you would go and see a counselor. Many of the times I tell my clients, and this happens with couples, a lot of couples will come in for therapy when it's time to amputate something instead of when it's time for a Band-Aid. So with anything that you're going through, I would say don't wait until you're feeling it in a dramatic way or a high intense way. If you feel like you need help, then reach out for help, because that will help you to not get to the point where you really have super crossed your stress threshold. And it doesn't even necessarily mean you go to a therapist. It might be assessing how you're thinking about what's going on in your life and the things that are on your plate, and either deciding for yourself to put some things aside and address them at a later date, or delegate them to other people if you have other people in your life that would be able to help you with some of those things.
If you're thinking about breaking into the tech field, then you should enroll in Course Careers. Our economy has changed, and so has the way we start careers. Course Careers is an online platform that will help you start your career faster without wasting money on college. With the Course Careers program, you can enroll into their online self-paced courses to begin, and you can complete the course in as little as a few weeks. And you don't have to worry about having the time to finish, because all the courses are self-paced. You'll learn everything that's required to land your first job in tech sales, digital marketing, or information technology. The people at Course Careers partner directly with companies that want to hire you when you finish the program. People that finish the program are making $60,000 a year working from home. One person was able to finish the course within 2 weeks, and before they can even apply to any companies, their dream company reached out to them and set up an interview. They offered them over $100,000 a year starting in a fully remote position, and they didn't have any previous experience. If you want to get into the tech field, then go to my website, theladavis.com, to enroll today. And just for my listeners of this show, you can get a $50 discount when you use the coupon code LA50. That's LA50. Just go to theladavis.com/career, and you can also find that link in the show description. Course Careers is the quickest and most affordable way to change or start a career. When we're thinking about these things, this is a term that I hear a lot in today's day. The term self-care. Some call it self-care, self-love, and I know I believe that people have different definitions of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I know some people may think self-care is something that is, I don't want to say completely selfish, because in a sense it is, and in a selfish in a good way. I understand that part. But I know I'll just leave it at that. I know people got different definitions on what self-care is, but I definitely would love to get your take on what is self-care, and then and also what are some ways that people some tools that they can use to develop a self-care, because I know it's important. I believe it's needed. I believe it's important. But first, just tell us, what is it from your perspective? And maybe what is not. Also, what are some ways that a person can develop a self-care regimen for themselves?
Okay. So you're absolutely right. Some people do view self-care as selfish, and that's an unfortunate view, because it will stop a lot of people from applying self-care to their lives, because they don't want to be selfish, or because they don't want to be perceived as selfish. But self-care is, the definition of it is kind of in the title. Care that you provide for yourself. And so one of the ways that I help clients to overcome the idea that, oh, if I take care of myself, I'm selfish, is I give them this phrase: you cannot serve from an empty cup. So depending on what your roles are in life, whether you are an employee, whether you own a company, whether you're a mom or dad, or, someone that someone depends on, if you're depleted and drained and you're trying to give to somebody else, it's going to be next to impossible. Some people push through and give anyway, or serve anyway, and work anyway, but you end up being physically and mentally depleted. And that might mess around with your emotions, whereby you're responding in emotional ways to things that are not emotional, or the way in which you normally respond is much higher level elevated than it would in a normal thing. So if you're thinking of self-care as filling your cup, one of the things that I tell my clients when we are working on stress management and on depression too, I do this with clients that are depressed as well, is the quality of your day begins the night before. And so what that means is, if you're feeling depleted and stressed, then it may be that you have too much stuff on your plate. And yeah, you have to delegate or put some things aside, or delete it altogether. But it also may be that you didn't get a good night's sleep the night before. So it could be not getting a good night's sleep may be the cause of elevated stress, or the beginning of what's going to be elevated stress. Or it could be opposite, where you're so stressed that you can't sleep at night. So that's why I teach from the standpoint of the quality of your day, whether you're stressed out or not, begins the night before. And so what I usually do is have people start with that. And what that means is developing an evening routine. In the field, we call it sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene means how clean is your sleep? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing before you go to bed? And the psychology behind that comes from the idea that around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, your body's serotonin levels start to drop, and then your melatonin levels start to elevate. Our bodies are set rhythmically. That's another hard word to say. Our bodies are set to the clock, to the sun. Like our time clock, our interior body clock is set to the rhythm of the sun. And so when the sun goes down, so the serotonin. and melatonin raises. And then at about 4 or 5 a.m., your melatonin doses in your body. And serotonin and melatonin are just neurochemicals that we all have in our bodies. And part of their job is set around sleep, getting to sleep and then waking up in the morning. So when you're doing your sleep hygiene the night before, you want to have a routine that you're engaging in. And so, what that might look like is having a set time in the evening where you turn off all the screens, and or you nowadays, they've invented, I forget what it's called, but it's a yellow light that in some of the newer iOS, I don't know if the Google instruments have it, but in some of the newer iOS technology, you can set a night shift and it'll give you a yellow light. And so that'll eliminate the blue light because they found that, like science has found that the blue light is the thing that keeps people from going to sleep. But I would say, even with the yellow light on the screens, to eliminate the screens at a certain time of day. And then engage in some kind of routine that you do every single night. And so that might be after you have dinner, maybe doing some light stretching, maybe taking a shower or a bath, perhaps reading something. But whatever you do, have muted lighting on, and muted, like kind of like that lamp in my background. It casts a yellowish glow, something that casts like a yellowish glow or a reddish glow. You don't want light that emits blue light because that interferes with the brain waves in your sleep. And so having a set routine every night, because what you want to do is train your brain to start shutting down. A lot of people want to try to go to sleep right after watching TV or right after answering emails and texts and stuff like that. And the thing about that is, because our brains operate on different brain waves, when you're active, it's beta waves. But to relax and rest and go to sleep, you need to trick your brain into going into the alpha waves. And so when you have this routine scheduled every night and you implement it, your brain will get used to shutting down and getting into the relaxed waves of alpha, and it'll be easier for you to go to sleep. And then at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, the melatonin in your body starts to decrease and the serotonin starts to increase with the rhythm of the sun. As the sun is coming up, then that. So sleep hygiene is one form of self-care. And then during the day, what you want to do is, with regards to self-care, is making sure that you're taking breaks throughout your work day. If try not to work longer than whatever is your set time to work. Like, I understand sometimes we have to do overtime and things like that for financial reasons, or do overtime because things just need to be done at work, whatever the case may be. But making sure that you have, during the workday, you're taking breaks on a weekly basis. You have a weekend of some sort, even if your weekend is during, like you have 2 days off during the week instead of on the weekend, making sure that you take time off to rest and recharge. Make sure that you have something in your life that brings you joy. A lot of times I tell people to have some form of creative endeavor, even if you don't think that you're a creative person. Meaning, like, most people see creativity as people that can sing or act or paint or dance. And of course, if you have those talents, then engage in that. But you can engage in any form of creativity: organizing a closet, organizing anything, creating a beautiful home, gardening, but having something that you're doing that brings joy to you, that fills your soul. Another form of self-care is connecting with people that you love, but also connecting with people that love you. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes we have people that we love, and yeah, they love us back, but they're not doing anything to fill our cup. So spending some time with people that actually fill your cup, in addition to spending time with people whose cup you fill.
Okay, you know what I thought you were going to say, and anyone listening probably thought you were going to say, and this is their definition. Oh, I need to stay in the bed, eat ice cream, and watch Netflix for 8 hours, and that's self-care. That's self-love. You know, I thought that's what you were gonna say. Well, no, I knew you weren't gonna say that. But I think that's what some people's idea of what self-care is. And I think some people are actually trying to do those things like lay in the bed, eat ice cream, kind of be slothful and lazy and calling it self-care. And I think personally, and you can correct me on this, I think that's probably inducing more stress because I've found that a way to manage your stress is not to not do anything, because sometimes that can induce more stress when you're lazy and lethargic or don't have a purpose. I think that yes, you need to relax, find ways to disconnect, like you said, find some things that you enjoy, some hobbies, do some things that bring you joy, and still have some sense of purpose for your day versus just completely nothing at all. And I'm not saying make a schedule, even when in your relaxed time, still have a plan to relax. That's what I think it is. Think that, that's the way to have self-care is have some strategy in place, like you just gave us, some regimen, because I think a lot of people, they believe that self-care means, oh, I don't do nothing. I don't answer the phone. I'm just taking care of me. I'm eating ice cream. I'm watching Netflix, and oftentimes they feel worse from doing things like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what you're describing is disconnection. And there is a definite difference between, disconnecting, or there's another word for it where people just kind of shut down and decompress. That's different from self-care. And sometimes it's okay to disconnect. If you want to watch, 5 episodes of your favorite show on Netflix, and that will help you to decompress to a certain degree. But self-care is more action oriented, and it's an active way of taking care of yourself and having things in your life that move you forward. Like there's so many different self-care things that you can do. Like I named mostly sleep and scheduling your day, but other things that are included in that is like exercise, prayer and meditation, going on walks, which could be exercise, but some people like to take walks because they like to be out in nature. Being out in nature is a form of self-care because we kind of come from the ground. And so there's I don't know how new it is, but there's a form of therapy out there where people will go outside barefoot and walk in, not on the concrete in the city, but like walk in grassy areas or dirt just to connect with the energy, of the earth. And that's supposed to be calming to your brain waves, because we come from the earth. So self-care is usually something that is action and active for you to put into place for yourself. Can you do a shutdown and disconnect in front of Netflix or Hulu or something like that? Sure. But I wouldn't do that every day as a form of self-care, because you're absolutely right. And the other thing you said about not having a purpose, we are purpose-driven people. That's just who we are as human beings. Like there has to be something to look forward to, something to work on, or something to hope for. And you don't have to do that in a frenetic, always striving type of way. But the way we are made is we are made for purpose. So if we're just kind of laying around day in and day out, vegging out, that is going to make us feel worse. Especially if there's things we need to be doing or ought to be doing, it's going to gender up guilt, and we'll end up feeling guilty about that. And then 2, because of the way we're made, it doesn't sit well with us to just be sitting around doing nothing.
Are you trying to build your personal brand and break free from your 9-to-5? Or maybe you like your 9-to-5, but you want to start a side hustle and make some extra money? Take control of your legacy, your narrative, and your finances by unlocking the tools you need to create impact and financial freedom. Maybe you have a message to share, but right now, that message is not being heard. Maybe you're lacking the community to serve with your passion and gifts. Maybe you don't have a clear path to turn your passion into income. You may have anxiety about where to even start because putting yourself out there at first can feel overwhelming. Well, I want to tell you about the Impact Creator Society. This is a community created to help you build your 6-figure personal brand. Once you have a clear path to turn your passion into profit and grow an established community, a world of possibilities will open up for you. The Impact Creator Society is a community to help you create your impactful brand that generates freedom and legacy. Inside this community, you will get courses and workshops to include the Entrepreneur's Blueprint and Millionaire Mentor Masterclass. You will get group accountability through an online engaged community. If you're ready to start or to level up your personal brand, then go to theladavis.com/impact to join today. Again, that's theladavis.com/impact. And you can also find that link in the show description. Yeah, I definitely totally agree with everything you said. So when it comes to stress management, I like to find, and I do those things that I do have a nighttime routine. I also have a morning routine that I do. I I don't know if it helps with my stress or not, but I've been doing that, and I definitely try to stop looking at screens at a certain time, at least an hour before I go to bed, and then I try to read, for that last hour while I'm up, and I try not to eat too late and things like that. But I also have a morning routine, things that I do every morning. My prayer, meditation, devotion, and things like that I do every morning. But I feel like for me, I know I believe that the way that I manage stress is having my plan, like having a routine and a plan. And sometimes some people closest to me, they may call me like structured, like you're so structured, or rigid. And I don't like to say rigid. I don't believe I'm rigid. I'm structured, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like my structure allows me to manage my stress as well, because if I don't have my structure, that makes like when I know what I'm doing, I can get in autopilot
Yeah.
and just kind of uh, go through my day,
Yeah.
and those things help me manage stress. So I don't know how you feel about as far as like having a structure. Would you say that's a tool to manage stress as well?
Absolutely. And that's one of the tools that we learn early in life. One of the reasons why schools like in elementary school and junior high and high school and even college, but early on in life, from kindergarten or preschool on, there is structure. You every day you do this at this time, and then we do this, and then we have outside time, and then we do this, and then we have lunchtime, and then we have nap time, and things like that. So people are raised up in structure the whole time that they're in school. And even before then, like if when you're home with your mom before you go to preschool, your mom probably has a structure. Like she gets you up, she gets you breakfast, and there's playtime. There might be some coloring time, or there might be a play date. But people are raised up on structure for a reason. The brain likes it. People function better. It is an antidote against stress, especially for people who have anxious type personalities anyway. Knowing what's coming next can be soothing. But the problem is people forget that. Once you're out from under the school system, a lot of people forget that and then try to wing their way through life, even though they have jobs, that expect certain things of them. So they might be able to engage in the structure at the job, but then they forget all about it, either at the job or even later in life. And it's not to say that every single hour of every single day needs to be structured out, because you do need that downtime and that decompression time, that time of just being without even thinking about it. But you can't, if you're going to try to loosey goosey your way through life, it is going to add to stress, especially when there's lots more things that you are responsible for, or a lot more things on your plate. You're not going to have any structure to figure out how to move around in that.
Yeah, I like to, and I know, and this is one thing I always come back with when someone tells me I'm so structured. I tell them, actually, my structure allows me to have more freedom, because when I
Exactly.
have a certain structure, I do have that freedom to be spontaneous, or I have that freedom to think clearly,
Yeah.
because I know this is set, that's set. I know what I'm doing over here. This is set. I'm not reacting. I'm proactive, and actually, that in turn allows me to have more freedom throughout my day. And
Yeah.
so that's, for me, that's been helpful.
I
Okay.
agree with you. I agree. It does, having structure does create freedom, more freedom in your day, because you're not just spread out when you don't have to be. Like when people just kind of wing it, tasks will often take longer than what they need to, or you'll jump around from task to task and not really get anything done. Like when I was younger, the ability to multitask was a great thing to put on the resume, but that's not the case anymore. They found that multitasking and being all over the place actually produces less it produces less productivity than having structure in your workday.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. There's somebody in my life that I love dearly who believes that, and I always tell you, they believe that. Oh, you just can't multitask. And I'm definitely going to allow them to hear what you just said. So thank you for saying that.
You know,
Anyway, the next, so as we begin to wrap up here, I know most people, or a lot of people, can't manage stress simply because they have no boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Some people just, they're stressed out. They can't, they just have a lot of stress because simply they just can't, they don't have boundaries in place, right?
Mhm.
And things are coming at them, people are coming at them, people are pulling them, and because of not having boundaries, that is the reason why they experiencing the stress on the levels that they are, because of a lack of boundaries. And I'm big on boundaries. I'm a nice, loving person, but I've never had a problem with boundaries. I don't know. I grew up that way for whatever reason. I never had a problem with setting boundaries,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes to a fault. Maybe, but I haven't had that problem. But I know so many people do, right? And so, just what are, first of all, what are boundaries? Because that's what I think that needs to be understood. What are boundaries? Because some people think that a boundary means being mean, or being a butthole, or being selfish, or things like that. Some people believe that.
Mm.
So just tell us, what are boundaries, and for those people, what are boundaries, and how can we learn to implement them if we don't already know how to?
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people do think of boundaries as how much am I going to put up with before I whatever, or how much am I going to let in and how much am I going to keep out? And that's a small part of setting a boundary in certain situations, but boundaries encompass a lot more than that. They are more about understanding that all of your thoughts, words, feelings, behaviors, and resources of time, energy, and money belong to you, and all of her or his thoughts, words, feelings, beliefs. I mean, starts, words, feelings, behaviors, beliefs. I would put beliefs in there too. And resources of time, energy, and money belong to them. And so when you have that conceptualized in your mind, you start to learn that whatever you say yes or no to, if it's not your own, resources, you have every right to say yes or no to that. Right. And so I think when people are first learning to set boundaries, I will often have people read this book called Boundaries by Doctors Cloud and Townsend, and it is the best book on boundaries that I've ever read. Like as a therapist, I've read lots of books on boundaries because it's one of the main reasons people come in for help. But one of the book that I almost always refer people to is Boundaries. And that's the title. And the authors are Doctors Cloud and Townsend, and they're therapists as well. But they talk about it from that standpoint and help people identify, how to separate their boundaries out from other people. And so the way I teach it, a lot of it is based on what I learned from that book, but it's like even asking yourself, is this how I think about this? Or is this how I feel about this? Or am I just thinking and feeling this because so and so is thinking it and feeling it? And that's an important distinction to make, especially in the social media realm, whereby you see there's people that will see a post or see something online and just start getting upset about it because somebody else is upset about it, or start feeling and thinking that this is terrible because this person thinks it's terrible. But if you were to sit down and think about, well, what do I think about that? And how do I feel? And you really get alone with yourself and get quiet, you'd see that you probably don't even care about that. So why are you even upset? Like that's not even an issue for you. So learning how to differentiate between your own thoughts, taking responsibility for the words that come out of your mouth, taking responsibility for your own behaviors, and being responsible for things that you're responsible for is a way of setting boundaries. So, and what I mean by that is sometimes when people get roped in and pulled in by other people, like what you were saying, and they can't set boundaries. In my book, I talk about different forms of clutter in your life. And one of the clutter kinds that I name is called obligatory clutter. And obligatory clutter is a bunch of stuff in your life that you feel obligated for. If you have good boundaries and you know what you're responsible for, and you can identify, oh, this is somebody else's responsibility, it doesn't mean you don't help out. You help out if you want to, and I give a tool on how to assess whether to say yes to that or not. But you recognize that this is that person's problem. Yes, I can help, and yes, I do want to help, or I can't really help, or I can, but I don't want to, for whatever reason. And then you stand firm in that. Like I talk about in the intervention for getting rid of obligatory clutter is to list out the things that are on your list, calendar them out, like the things that you're responsible for. And then when somebody asks you to do something, if you feel like you have the time and the energy and the space in your calendar to do that, then go ahead and do it. But if you don't feel like you have that, you have to develop a way to be able to say no so that you're not caught up in other people's agendas and other people's priorities over your priorities.
That's so good. That's so good. And saying no is not a bad thing. It's definitely a good thing, especially now. It's not about being mean about it or, but it's actually saying no, because when you say no to something, that means you can say yes to something else.
Exactly.
Right?
And it means that you've assessed, where am I in the space of what all I need to do? And do I have the time or do I have the energy for that? And if you don't, then don't say yes, because again, you can't serve from an empty cup. You'll just get in there and not do a great job. And then you'll end up either making an enemy, depending on what it is, or feeling guilty about it, depending on your personality type.
Yep. Yep. And that book you mentioned, I've read that book. It's a great book. I will definitely link that in the show description as well.
Yes.
Also, your book. Tell us where we can get your book.
You can find my book on Amazon.com. And if you go to Amazon, you type in my name, Tracy Taris, TracyTaris, and it'll pop up for you. But you could also type in the name Healing the Mind and Spirit. I believe it's available also on barnesandnoble.com and other book sites, but Amazon is the main one.
Okay, and I'll link that in the show description as well. I've been talking to Tracy Taris, and we've been talking about stress management, and it's been a awesome conversation. Tracy has dropped so much wisdom, so many nuggets for us to take. Thank you, Tracy, for giving so much value today. How can we connect with you to find out more of what you got going on?
Well, I will send you my email subscription list for those who want to subscribe to my blog site, because on there I write articles about relationships, about mental and emotional health, about marriage and parenting, just different varieties of things that I cover in my private practice. And if you want, if you live in California, we offer telehealth services. It's me and about 7 other therapists. We're a group practice, and you could either come in if you live in the Los Angeles area, you can come in and see someone face to face or via telehealth. And I'm also on Instagram at Healing the Mind and Spirit, and for my private practice, and at Tracy Taris for all of my writing and whatnot.
Okay. Those are on the screen. Also, I will link to those in the show description as well. Tracy, it's been fun. thank you. Just thank you for coming on the podcast today and just adding so much value. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.